ball. I can do everything in the court. I started playing basketball 2008, 5 years.
What is your goal for your career?
The 15th pick in the 2013 NBA draft, the Milwaukee Bucks select
the rise of Giannis Antetokounmpo. How does a kid who once had to sell trinkets on the streets just to eat become one of the most dominant forces in NBA history? That's Giannis Antetokounmpo's story. His rise wasn't just about basketball. It was about survival, relentless work, and proving everyone wrong. From being an unknown teenager in Greece to carrying an entire franchise to a championship, his story is nothing short of legendary. But how did he go from a lanky, overlooked prospect to a two-time MVP and NBA champion? Stick around because this journey is one you don't want to miss. Early life and background. Giannis was born on December 6, 1994, in Athens, Greece, to Nigerian immigrants who had moved there in search of a better life. His parents, Charles and Veronica, had left behind everything they knew in Nigeria, hoping to build a future in the country that didn't make it easy for outsiders. Greece did not grant birthright citizenship, which meant that Giannis and his siblings were effectively stateless, living in a country that didn't officially recognize them. Without legal documents, the family had no access to basic services, no stable jobs, and no real security. They lived with the constant fear of deportation, a shadow that loomed over them for years. Survival in Athens was a daily battle. Charles and Veronica worked whatever odd jobs they could find, but even then, it was never enough to help make ends meet. Giannis and his older brother Thanasis spent their childhood on the streets, selling sunglasses, watches, and trinkets to tourists. Some days, they made enough to eat. Other days, they went to bed hungry. He often spoke about those nights when food was scarce and how he would wake up in the middle of the night, stomach empty, but determined. Basketball wasn't even a thought back then. Survival was the only thing that mattered. Despite the hardships, the Antetokounmpo household was filled with love. Giannis's parents instilled in their children a relentless work ethic and deep sense of loyalty to one another. They had almost nothing, yet they always had each other. This tight-knit bond would later define Giannis's approach to life, shaping his mindset both on and off the court. Then, in 2008, his life changed to 13 years old when he was introduced to the game that would redefine his future. Basketball beginnings. It started with Spyros Vieniatis, a Greek basketball coach and scout who had a knack for spotting raw talent. He saw something in Giannis that others overlooked. An unusual common problem was, Giannis wasn't interested. He was too busy trying to make money for his family, and basketball didn't pay. But Vieniatis was persistent. He convinced Giannis and Thanasis to join a local club team, Philathleticos, promising that basketball could one day provide them with a better life. But what he did have was an obsession with improvement. He would show up to practice hours early and stay long after it ended. On some nights, he would even sleep, and that made him an intriguing prospect. It wasn't long before people took notice. European scouts started to whisper about this unknown Greek-Nigerian kid who could handle the ball like a guard and cover the court in just a few strides. But the NBA still seemed like an impossible dream. That dream, however, was about to become reality. By the time the 2013 NBA draft rolled around, Giannis Antetokounmpo was still a mystery to most basketball fans. He wasn't a household name. He was the definition of a project, skinny, unpolished, and inexperienced. Most analysts agreed that he wouldn't contribute right away, and some even questioned if he would make it in the league at all. But the Bucks weren't expecting overnight results. They were thinking long-term, betting that his work ethic and physical tools would eventually turn into something special. When he arrived in Milwaukee, he struggled with his shooting, his decision-making, and his confidence. Most rookies came into the league with at least a foundation to build on, but Giannis was starting almost from scratch. But if there was one thing Giannis never did, it was back down. He lived in the gym, constantly working on his game. He added weight, studied film, and soaked up every bit of knowledge he could from coaches and teammates. Even as he struggled, he showed flashes, an impossible block, a freakish coast-to-coast dunk, and moments of brilliance that made people wonder, what if? He wasn't an overnight success, but he was growing, learning, and evolving. And soon, the rest of the NBA would start to take notice. Rise to stardom. By the time Giannis entered his fourth NBA season, he was no longer just a promising young player. He was becoming a force. His body had transformed. The skinny teenager who once struggled to keep weight on had grown into a 6 foot 11 inch, 240 pound powerhouse. His skill set expanded just as dramatically. His ball handling, once shaky, became smooth and controlled. His footwork sharpened. His understanding of the game deepened. He wasn't just developing, he was evolving into a new kind of player, one that the NBA hadn't seen before. The league started taking notice. Then, in the 2016-17 season, he made history, becoming the first player ever to lead his team in all 5 major statistical categories: points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. He was doing everything, and he was doing it at an elite level. That season, he earned his first All-Star selection, a moment that cemented his place among NBA stars. He wasn't just some raw talent with potential anymore. He was one of the best players in the league. By the end of the season, he was named the NBA's most improved player, a fitting recognition for someone who had gone from an unknown draft pick to an All-Star in just 4 years. But for Giannis, it was just another step. He wasn't satisfied with individual accolades. He wanted more. He wanted greatness. And greatness, for him, wasn't just about scoring points. He was becoming just as dominant on the defensive end. His length, speed, and relentlessness turned him into a nightmare for opponents. He could guard all 5 positions, block shots at the rim, and disrupt passing lanes like few others. He wasn't just a star, he was a complete player, capable of taking over a game in every possible way. But for all his individual MVP and defensive dominance. By 2019, Giannis wasn't just an all-star. He was the most dominant player in the NBA. His game had reached another level, and numbers backed it up. That season, he averaged 27.7 points, 12.5 rebounds, and 5.9 assists per game, all while leading the Milwaukee Bucks to the best record in the league. He wasn't just scoring, he was controlling every aspect of the game. His relentless drive to the basket made him nearly unstoppable, and his ability to facilitate offense turned the Bucks into an elite team. He was then named the 2019 NBA MVP, becoming just the second player in franchise history after Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
The 2019 Kia NBA Most Valuable Player goes to Giannis Antetokounmpo.
But it wasn't enough. Despite their dominance in the regular season, the Bucks collapsed in the Eastern Conference Finals, blowing a 2-0 lead against the Toronto Raptors. The loss stung. Giannis, who had spent his entire career proving doubters wrong, had a new challenge, proving he could win when it mattered most. The next season, he came back even better. His scoring jumped to 29.5 points per game, his efficiency remained high, and his defense impact was undeniable. He wasn't just the best player in the league. He was the best on both ends. He won his second consecutive MVP award, joining a legendary list of players who had gone back-to-back. He also took home Defensive Player of the Year, becoming just the 3rd player in history, along Michael Jordan and Hakeem Olajuwon, to win both awards in the same season. Yet again, the playoffs were a different story. The Bucks entered the 2020 postseason as favorites, but were stunned by the Miami Heat in the second round. Giannis injured his ankle in Game 3, and Milwaukee never recovered. Another disappointing exit, another round of questions about whether he could lead a team to a championship. But Giannis wasn't built to run from challenges. While the rest of the world speculated about his future, he had only one thing in mind: finding a way to win. And that moment was coming sooner than anyone expected. Championship journey. When the Milwaukee Bucks were eliminated from the 2020 playoffs, the noise around Giannis Antetokounmpo's future grew deafening. Analysts, fans, and former players all assumed the same thing: he had to leave. The NBA had become a league of super teams, and Giannis was expected to follow the trend. The easiest path to a championship was to join forces with another star, maybe in Miami, Golden State, or Los Angeles. But Giannis saw things differently. Instead of leaving, he stayed. In December 2020, he signed a 5-year, $228 million Supermax extension with Milwaukee, a contract that no one dared to dispute, even Stephen A. himself. The Bucks, knowing they had to build a real contender around him, made a crucial move before the season, trading for veteran guard Jrue Holiday. With Holiday's defensive toughness and playmaking, Milwaukee finally had a championship-caliber core. The regular season went well, but the real test came in the playoffs. After sweeping the Miami Heat in the first round, the Bucks faced the Brooklyn Nets, a team stacked with Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. Down 2-0 in the series, Milwaukee looked finished, but Giannis refused to fold. He delivered one of the greatest playoff performances of his career, outdueling Durant in a Game 7 overtime thriller to send the Bucks to the Eastern Conference Finals. Even Shaquille O'Neal knows his place when it comes to this guy.
Hopefully, when you mention the greatest, it's him, Kobe, and Mike. So wish I was in that conversation.
However, a week later, disaster struck. In Game 4 against the Atlanta Hawks, Giannis suffered a gruesome knee hyperextension, and it looked like his season was over. Somehow, just days later, he was back. Not only did he return for the NBA Finals against the Phoenix Suns, he dominated. After battling through injuries and playoff heartbreaks for years, Giannis delivered his masterpiece in Game 6. 50 points, 14 rebounds, 5 blocks, and the championship-clinching win. He didn't just win, he owned the moment. Holding back tears during the post-game celebration, he said the words that defined his journey: "I did it the hard way." And he's not done yet. Still in his prime, Giannis continues to dominate the NBA, building a legacy that is poised to inspire generations. His story is far from over. So what do you think about Giannis Antetokounmpo's incredible journey? Do you believe he's on his way to become one of the greatest players of all time? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing stories like this.